thank you for joining us on this blustery day.
You're okay, you just did another one.
We're so delighted to have two experts in finance here, myself certainly not included. We've got Maggie Harmon all the way from Oakland, California this morning. Maggie is the Ministry Relations Officer of PCUSA. We just started in June. So she's bringing a lot of expertise. She went to Stanford, and most importantly, she got her English degree at UC Davis as a fellow English major. I always have to point out that you can do other things with an English degree. And we have our very own Mary Pringle, who's been a CPA for a number of years, and she went to the University of Kansas, which my Missouri relations will forgive. But they're going to talk to us a little bit today about the new tax code and what that means for us and what that means for our charitable giving. So thank you for coming, and take away the meeting.
Thank you. I'm Maggie, and I'm standing here like this not because I don't like you all, but because it is quite chilly. So please forgive me. I know that body language speaks a lot, but it's not you, it's me. I joined the Presbyterian Foundation in mid-June. The Presbyterian Foundation, if you don't know, is one of the 6 agencies that make up the PCUSA body. We are the foundation, I should forget somebody, I always do the foundation, the Board of Pensions, the mission agency, the Historical Society, the publishing, and the Office of General Assembly. And we work for you. We respond to the actions of General Assembly, and primarily at the foundation, what we're responsible for is stewarding assets. We were started in 1799 with a bequest for Christian education, and over 200 years later, we are still stewarding that asset. So most of the work that I do is in conversation with people around stewardship, legacy giving, and then I also do organizational development because I come with a background in legal practice and nonprofit management and management consulting, if I forget what I'm saying. Today, Mary and I are sort of going to tag team, and we're going to talk to you about charitable giving in the context of the new tax code and how that might change what you're thinking about in terms of the charitable giving that you do. I know there's not many of us, but just show of hands of everyone here, who only gives charitably because you get a tax deduction? Right? I mean, we don't. We want to be good stewards of our assets, and that means being smart about how you give, and giving in a way that maybe maximizes the assets that you have, and so you have the ability to give more. But fundamentally, people coming to church, people who are already engaged in philanthropy are not giving only because they're getting a tax deduction. So, and Mary will talk more about the details of what the tax code changes look like. But fundamentally, we're not giving because we get that. We're giving because we feel compelled to give. So what I want to talk about today is how can we give in a way that allows us to actually have more assets to then give, right? Because if we can save some money in our taxes, then we have more that we can give away. But I want to talk about that really in the context of what is our legacy? Because you can give right now, and you can also give when you pass. And we want to understand sort of the interplay of some of those two things, I think. And Jan, how much time do we have here? We have an hour?
Yes.
Okay. And Mary, what time do you have for the meeting?
I was hoping by 12:15.
12:15. Okay.
45 minutes.
Okay. So I will try to talk for about 20 minutes, and then turn it over to Mary and let her talk, and then I can be here afterwards to answer questions as well. As we start, I'm going to ask you all to just sort of pause for a moment because we're about to go into business head, but think about what are the legacies that you've received from the generations who've come before you. And to pause in that thinking, non-judgmentally, because a legacy can be good or bad, and we have a choice today about what kind of legacy we're going to leave, whether that's a positive or a negative or a neutral. But I want you to just think for a moment, what have you received from the generations who have come before you? And I'm going to read a reflection as I invite you to think about that, and then we'll start to talk about some of the sort of nitty-gritty of what legacy giving can look like. I will sing of the well-founded earth, heavenly God, eldest of all beings. You fed all natures that are in the world, all that go upon the goodly land, all that are in the paths of the seas, and all that fly. All these are fed on your store. Through you, O God, we are blessed in our children and in our harvest, and to you we owe our lives. Happy are we who delight to honor. We have all things abundantly in our houses. We are filled with good things. Our cities are orderly. Our sons exult with ever-fresh delight, and our daughters with flower-laden hands play and skip merrily over the soft flowers of the field. Thus it is for those whom you honor, O Holy One, bountiful Spirit. Hail God, parent of us all, freely bestow upon me for this my song that cheers the heart. I really like that because I like that idea of how much bounty we've been given and how much bounty there is in something simple. And then looking forward to our children or our metaphorical children if we don't have them, what can we leave and what seed can we plant for them in the future? So again, when we talk about the tax changes, when we talk about legacy giving, we're given an opportunity to say, how can I best steward the assets that I've been given so that I can spread that bounty more fully across the world? As Mary will explain, I'm sure, the tax law changed so that now the standard deduction that we take is $12,000 for individuals, correct me if I get anything wrong here, $24,000 for a couple. And the thinking is, well, that means that people aren't going to give charitably anymore because the standard deductions are so high, we really don't need to, and assuming that we're motivated only by that.
But that's federal, not state.
It's federal, not state, right? And California, being California, has not, I don't think, ever conformed to federal tax law. So my accountant, at least, will not be out of business this year. So I'm talking more about federal and the federal changes. That said, there are a few things that you can do that allow you to continue to give charitably and take advantage of getting over that standard deduction so that you can still save the money in your deductions. I wanted to talk about a few different kinds of gifts, and I've got a bunch of material back here. One of them is this, and none of this I designed, so here's to the marketing department at the foundation. This lovely Many Ways to Give, which has a nice fold out and a comparison chart of all kinds of different gifts you can do that are both lifetime gifts or bequest gifts and how they compare to each other, what you get to do with them and how taxes are implicated by them. But if we're talking about immediate, and we're talking about like what can I do right now this year in the next 4 weeks to make sure I get over that $12,000 or $24,000 limit for taking deductions and still make sure I'm maximizing what I'm doing for charity, there are a couple things. One of the best and easiest is a donor advised fund. Does anybody have one? Does anyone know what they are? Awesome. That means I get to talk and you all have to listen. So a donor advised fund is basically like your own mini foundation. They're really easy to start. With the foundation, you can go online, you fill out the form, you can do an ACH transfer or a credit card transfer, and then you get to maximize getting whatever points you get from your credit card. And you can open a fund with $2,500. A donor advised fund gives you an immediate tax deduction today because it's a completed gift to a charity. In this case, it's a completed gift to the Presbyterian Foundation. We hold it for you. And then it's just held there until you advise on where you want that money to go. And it can go to any 501c3 nonprofit. Did I say that right? Yeah, 3C, not C3. So about a donor advised fund is it gives you the deduction today, and it gives you flexibility to give whenever you want to give, and they're invested assets, which means theoretically they're growing. You know, the last month was kind of challenging for the markets, but you can choose a couple different ways you want those invested for more growth or more security, and then your fund sits there and it grows and you can give over time, and there's different strategies for, like, you can work with family and invite them into participating and making advice or giving advice on where you want those gifts to go. But there's another, thank you to the marketing department, nice sort of form called More to Share about donor advised funds, and it breaks down on the back exactly how you can bundle gifts into a donor advised fund in year one, get the benefit of the larger deduction this year, and then give over time. So for instance, if you are trying to meet that $12,000 standard deduction amount, you want to exceed that because you want to be able to itemize this year, then what you might do is say, well, normally I give $10,000 a year to charity. Like, you can look back over your past receipts and say, usually I do about $10,000 a year. So instead of doing that, what I'm going to do is give $20,000 to a donor advised fund this year, get all that money in the account, know that I'm not going to give it all this year, but then I can take the deduction, I can itemize my taxes, get more deduction out of that, give the $10,000 I would normally give this year, and then next year, give the other $10,000. And then in year 3, you might bundle your gifts again into, a $20,000 gift and be able to keep doing that. So that, in year 1, you're able to itemize and get more tax savings, and in year 2, you can just take the standard deduction and back and forth, like so. The money gets to sit there and grow. You can give as you want. You can do it online. You can fund a donor advised fund with cash. You can fund it with existing securities. So if you have securities that maybe you want to take a loss on this year, that's a great way to, you can sell them, put the money in the fund, you get the loss, plus you get the charitable tax deduction. It's sort of a great way to, again, steward those assets so that you've got more to stretch to go around. If you have appreciated securities and you don't want to realize the gain, you can just put those right in the fund, and the gain is realized by the fund, not by you. So there's a lot of different ways you can open a donor advised fund, and then have the money sitting there available for you to give charitably, and again, you get the deduction. Another tool that I'm seeing a lot of people do, and I think is a great idea, is thinking about life insurance. So life insurance is a great bequest gift. You can't use it to open a donor advised fund today, but what you can do is you can name something like a foundation or another charity the owner of a life insurance policy, and you can set up with us, you can set up something like a permanent fund or a donor advised fund to be the ultimate beneficiary of that life insurance policy. And then every year when you're going to pay the premium for that policy, instead of you paying it directly, you make the gift to the foundation, which becomes tax deductible, and the foundation pays the premium. And so at the end of the term, you're creating a fund that can be a substantial charitable fund, and you're getting a deduction every year for doing that. So that's another really nice way to think about it. If you have a life insurance policy and you don't really know, you don't know that you need it for the people that you originally thought it was for. Like my children, I have a life insurance policy. My children are now both young adults. My husband and I don't really need it for what we thought we needed it for, which was to help us if the kids were young. Well, so now what do we do with it? It's a great way to seed a charitable fund. And we see a lot of people do this actually to start endowment funds to benefit their church. So if you have a policy that's worth $100,000, that's a really nice way to start a permanent endowment fund to benefit something that's important to you at your particular church.
This works only for ordinary life, not for term insurance, correct?
I don't know why it wouldn't work for term insurance, as long as you were making the donation in order to pay the premium on the term. I mean, obviously, if the term expired prior to the life event expiring, then it would not establish a fund.
Right.
But there's always that possibility. There's a lot in here. I don't want to go over absolutely everything because it becomes a little overwhelming. And I also really want to keep us focused on how we can work with the existing tax law, the changes in the tax law and gifts today. The other one that I think is important to think about as you're considering year end and how you might make some changes here at year end is the pooled income fund. So pooled income fund is a little bit like an annuity, but it gives you an immediate charitable deduction, and it provides a little bit of a different structure than an annuity. The pooled income fund, you can make a donation into or you purchase into. You're going to get a guaranteed payout every year from the pooled income fund, and there's a calculation that's made at the time of the gift that defines what the charitable portion of that gift will be. So there's a guaranteed portion that goes to charity, unlike with an annuity, where it's possible that nothing will end up being given charitably. In the pooled income fund, there's a guaranteed amount, and it's a calculation that gets done as when you actually set that up. But that means that when you give to the pooled income fund this year, that calculation gets made, and you get to make take the tax deduction for that charitable portion the year that you buy into the pooled income fund, and then you can make additional contributions to the pooled income fund over time and continue to take tax deductions for those gifts as you contribute further to it. Are there any questions right now? Yeah.
There's one that you haven't mentioned, but I think is extremely valuable. And that is, if you're taking your required minimum distribution from your IRA, if you have it paid directly to a charity, then it's even more valuable than any of the things you've mentioned because it comes off your adjusted gross income immediately.
Yes.
So it lowers your tax $1 for $1.
Yeah.
You're paying income.
Yeah, you're exactly right. So if you're 70 and a half and you have a mandatory required distribution that you have to take from your IRA, then rather than taking that and having it realized in your income, you can give it directly to charity, and it just flows directly there. You cannot take that as a deduction, though.
No, but you get
But you've
100% of it off your income.
Yeah, but you've reduced your income because you haven't realized it as a part of your income. So if you do not need the cash from that distribution, that's a great thing to do, and it really benefits charitable organizations.
$12,000 deduction.
You do, absolutely. Yeah, but you don't, it's self-deductible, it just reduces your income.
Can you take the required minimum distribution yourself and then give it, or does it have to go directly to the charity?
No, it has to go to
Well,
that.
yeah, I mean, you can do that, but then you're realizing the income,
Yeah.
and then you're taking the deductions. It's a little bit more complicated. If you're going to do that, it makes more sense to just give it directly to the charity and to not to do that.
Yeah, if you have your money at a brokerage, then you just call the broker and you ask for a form. And it's a IRA distribution form. And they can help you fill it out or whatever. It's an IRA distribution or Pringle form. That's what I
Mine
buy.
fills that for me and I
Yeah.
just sign it.
Right, and you tell them how much or, you know. Yeah,
Are
you
these
can take up to
funds all
100,000.
available in different brokerages?
What do you, I'm sorry, I don't,
And with Fidelity, with these funds all available, with any given brokerage?
so Fidelity, I believe, has donor advised funds. So I think that you can start a donor advised fund with Fidelity. The pooled income fund I'm talking about, that's something that's unique to the foundation. I'm sure there are other organizations that have them, but I'm coming from a foundation perspective. And we talked about the IRA establishment. To do that, I mean, you would have to give to Fidelity's. I think you'd have to run that through Fidelity's charitable arm. And I know that they have one. You know, the pitch that I always make for why you would consider the foundation is because we've been doing this for over 200 years, and because we, like you, are Presbyterians, and we understand what the long-term picture for supporting and stewarding assets is. It's a little bit different than the perspective that Fidelity might bring. But I'm sure that you could talk to them. I know that they do have an arm that does donor advised funds and things like
Yeah,
that.
I did a little research on that too. Fidelity has a $5,000 minimum. Bank of America requires a $25,000 minimum. Fidelity has a 0.6% fee. Bank of America has a 0.9% fee. And I think also Schwab offers one. I didn't get the numbers on that. I don't know what your fees are at Presbyterian, if there aren't.
Yeah, so for a donor advised fund, there is, I don't know, let's take a look. I mean, we open donor advised funds for $2,500, and the fees that we take on that, I'm trying to think. They're not transactional, so I think that it's an annual based on growth. But you know, I opened my own fund with them this year, and I did it through a credit card transaction because I also wanted the miles. And it, like with many, there's a box that I can check to say, you know, please add a little bit more to cover the transaction costs. And so I did that because otherwise transaction costs come out. But we try to keep the fees really low because our goal is to get more money from you to the organizations that matter to you, and to help facilitate that. One of the things that I really, and I'm a little bit like intense about donor advised funds with people, that I love about them and that I love that the foundation offers them at starting at a low amount, is if you have family who has a lot of stuff, and a lot of us have a lot of stuff and we don't really need more stuff, they're a great thing to open for a child or a grandchild as a gift. And you can continue to make contributions to it for birthdays or for significant life events. And then it gives you an opportunity to engage with those people in teaching them how to think about what they want to give to and what's important to them, and really involve them in what that giving looks like. And because it's a relatively low amount, it means that it's something that you can do as a gift for someone, and then you teach them as well what that value is. So again, when we talk about value transfer, legacy gifts, what we want people to learn from us, it's a way for us to engage in what's important to us today and to plant that seed for the future generations. I'm going to turn it over to Mary to get more specific, and then I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Can I ask you one more question?
Yeah, please.
Going back to the required minimum distribution, did I understand correctly that you can have some of your required minimum distribution sent to the charity of your choice and take it as a deduction?
No, you cannot.
Once you do that, you can't take it.
Right.
Take the $12,000.
Just to get the donor advised funds a little bit, Martha was excellent at giving me all this information. But you are taking a risk when you put it in a fund because it's being invested. And with the stock market going up and down like crazy, you know, I mean, you're running a risk of some sort. But it certainly, you know, helps for those people who want to double up, make a big, you know, $30,000 contribution, get the write-off, and then skip a couple of years to those same charities. Not that we would want you to do that for the church. But anyway, so there is that, and you can do this through any of your brokerage firms, even though the only ones doing it are, like, I'm with UBS, and they said they use Fidelity. People can set, you can set one up at your brokerage firm. They'll just use whoever available. So I just thought, I just wanted to go over the change in the tax law a little bit about the new standard deduction. As Maggie already mentioned, it's $12,000 for individuals, $24,000 for married, and it's $18,000 for head of household. Plus, if you're 65 or older, you get another $1,300. So what this means is that people who are motivated by the tax deduction to give to charity may not get any write-up, any benefit for it, because the standard deductions are so high. So the issue with federal also, not necessarily California, is that your other deductions are limited to $10,000 for what we call SALT, state and local income taxes, state and local taxes. So people who were writing off, property taxes and their state income taxes for $50,000, $60,000 a year, they're limited to 10. So if you're a married couple and you've got a $24,000 automatic standard deduction, you're only getting 10 for all those other taxes, and you don't have any mortgage interest, that's another deduction. That's your third major deduction is charity. You're going to have to contribute quite a bit to get any benefit for it. It's just not there. So, but as Maggie pointed out, let's hope people are not making these donations for the tax benefit. But I thought I would just kind of leave it open if any of you have any questions how it works, because I know it can be confusing. Because some people would come and say, I understand I have to exceed $12,000 in charitable contributions before I get a benefit. Well, it's all your deductions would have to exceed $12,000 before you got any benefit for additional. So, does anyone have any questions about how that works, or I can give you some examples of? Yeah.
I just wanted to clarify a little about what was said about the IRA, because I've done this and I know it. Is that the advantage of it is you get to give whatever you want to give, up to
100.
100,000, I think.
Right,
And it comes off from the top.
right.
And then you can still deduct your 10,000 and your medical or whatever it is that you're still allowed for deductions. You just can't deduct what you gave to the charity again.
Right.
But you can still do all your other deductions.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So it really, for some people, and I know I'm in that situation, it enables me to give considerably more money through the IRA than I would be able to.
Yes, it's a real.
It also doesn't affect any of the areas in the other part, the deductions where you have to be over a certain amount
Right,
before you can take that
Right.
10% or 8% or 7.5%. That doesn't influence it. So
right.
it really is valuable to think about.
It is, it really is. And for all of you on Medicare, it reduces your, your, what they call, I think it's called calculable.
You don't, where they double up the
Yes,
Medicare thing?
they start making you
They
pay
make
more
it-
for your
they make it-
insurance.
Yeah.
It brings that down, whatever amount that is. But, it's like every year I go, what? How come everything goes up every year? Because,
But if you have an accountant, it's well worth running that by.
yeah, it's a real benefit to have it reduce your gross income. But, have you gotten the 1099 forms from?
Not yet.
Not yet, because I asked my broker on that, and she said, well, it'll still be the full distribution. Say you had a minimum distribution of 15,000. It'll still show that the taxable amount will be blank. You'll have to know what you gave to the charity.
Well, but it comes under broker's statement.
Yeah.
Mine it does.
Right, yeah. So you'll just have to do that or tell your accountant that you did this. Yes.
Are there any red flags in the financial advising community that because this is a new system with the feds, are there things that are going to maybe alert them in differences? Obviously, we're on island a little bit differently now. I knew what all my red flags were, and I was really, really good at being consistent through the years. And so now, I'm going to have to rethink this. So what are some of the red flags? Are they looking at people who are suddenly big donors or new donors or no donors or?
Well, I wouldn't be surprised if the IRS is going to be informed of who did this, and it's already in the system. Because you're going to do it through a brokerage firm. You're going to do it through where your money's invested. They are going to report it on your, return itself. It's going to be information that's available to them. So I don't think they're going to go around auditing everyone who did it because they want to make sure you gave that money. Because it's going directly to the institution. It isn't going to you and then to the institution. It's going directly. So the brokerage firms will have all that information. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's, the IRS already knows about it. So there wouldn't be a red flag by doing it. I don't think.
This only works if you use the long form, right? You can't take a short form income tax with all the standard deductions and then utilize.
Yeah, if you do the minimum distribution, it absolutely works, because you're reducing your gross income. So that would still work on a short form. Yeah.
There would be a lot of people who use the short form that never have before in their lives.
Right.
Like me.
Yeah, right. If you don't have a lot of other, if you don't have a mortgage interest, I mean, it's taxes, mortgage interest, and charitable contributions are basically what the big three deductions. And, federal's pretty much wiped out most of the taxes because it's down to 10,000, So that leaves mortgage interest and charitable contributions to be the source of your itemized deductions.
Medical expenses
Yeah, but you have to exceed, I forget what the number, 10% or 7.5% or something.
this year.
Yeah. And of course, all these changes are due to expire in 2026, so, but that's a ways off, So, any other questions about that? Let me look at my notes real quick, see if there's anything else I want to hit on here.
What is the California thing?
Well, California has its own standard deduction and, so forth. So I don't, I haven't heard anything about that they're changing to comply with federal rules. In fact, I'd be surprised if they did because taxes are so high here, So that'll be interesting because people will, still have to get together their taxes for the California returns, So it's not really going to cut down on their time preparing a return. As I said, it's they increased the amount you can give up to 60%. It used to be 50%, and so that's just of your there's a word for it of your contribution base, which is your adjusted gross income without any net operating loss. This is making sense. But most people don't get close to contributing 60% of their adjusted gross income to charities. That's a lot,
Mary, just to clarify that though, if you were to do that, so for instance, say you had a second home and you don't see a need for retaining the second home, and so you want to give that charitably, or open a donor advised fund or an endowment fund or something like that with it, you can take that total deduction this year, the maximum, and then you can roll over for 5 years, right?
Right.
Okay.
You can. And I think that if it's a capital gain property that you're contributing, it's only 30%, not 60. But that's, if you have something like that, you really should talk to your accountant. Relying on this. Okay. So I don't think if you really want to go over the other itemized deductions changes, that's not really, but I'm here. And travel is for charitable contributions is 14 cents a mile plus parking and tolls. So that doesn't mean travel to get to church. It means when you're out doing things on behalf of the church. You deduct
Why don't
that.
you just run down the list without comment on what other deductions have changed?
Well, you no longer have employee business expenses, that's 0. You no longer have investment fees, that's 0. No longer have casualty or theft loss, except for federal disaster. And that's getting rid of quite a few things that other people sometimes used. But medical has a limit of you have to exceed 7.5% of your adjusted gross income before you get that deduction. And I think that's going to go up to 10. I'm not sure. Yeah. Right. So that's about it on the other item.
Tax preparation is
That's
still-
0.
But that's still good in California to do that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So they've done away with quite a few of those itemized deductions. But on the other hand, as I've been doing tax returns for people or projections and having them pay their estimated taxes, even when they lose all those, I had one couple that was 100,000 of state taxes and 30,000 of property taxes, all that reduced to 10, they still owed less because the rates went down. So it's not the end of the world. Yes?
Did the child credit change?
Yeah, I don't know.
It went up.
Sorry, Matt.
It went up, and more people will be able to take advantage of it because they reduced the point at which you phased out, and the amount went up. So have lots of babies. Congratulations, increase the kingdom.
Before year end.
Yeah, good planning. All right, any other questions? Okay. All right, you want to?
Sure. I'll come back in for a second. I'm going to ask a question you're asked us to ask in church. How many people here, and you don't have to raise your hand, because I'll just make an assumption, how many people here give to the church every year? Everybody. So, one of the things we're talking about is, the deduction went up, or the standard deduction went up, and so, you don't have to do it as much to get that, and how much are you giving, is it worth it? Part of why we're talking about the opportunity to bundle gifts into something bigger is because it does give you more to then give, but also as you think about how do I bundle my gifts, I would say just think a little bit creatively about what you have that could go into being a charitable gift. A lot of times we talk about making a $20,000 or $30,000 donation to a donor-advised fund, for instance. That's a lot of money. And I don't take for granted that that's a lot of money. $2,500 is a lot of money. But sometimes if we look around, we have things that we don't necessarily think are monetarily valuable that actually are. And one of the things that we can help with at the foundation is understanding how to convert assets that you have into something that then becomes, usable or more usable for the charitable organizations that matter to you. I think one of the things that's interesting about the foundation is we have about $2 billion of assets under management. It's like ranges 1.8, 1.9, it goes up and down. None of that money is ours. It's all money that's held for churches and other organizations that are a part of the denomination or generally a part of the kingdom. So one of the things we do is we work with people to understand what do you have that maybe you aren't going to be able to pass on, or that maybe later generations don't want, but are actually quite valuable. And then you can take advantage of that this year in order to get that gift bundling, so that then you have the cash to give. We recently worked with someone who had rental property, and he wanted to divest some of the rental property that he had, so he sold the rental property. And it then seeded I think a $250,000 fund that's going to go back to benefit ministry in his church. I worked with, when I was doing estate planning, I have a background in law. Years ago, I worked with a gentleman who we had done the whole estate plan, and we talked about all the assets that they had, and we thought everything was all buttoned up. And I said, is there anything else? Is there anything else that you have that we need to think about? And I think it was like a third meeting we had when we were like finalizing everything. He went, oh, you know what I didn't mention? I have all this pottery in my garage, because he made pottery, and each piece sells for about $10,000. He had like 20 pieces sitting back there. I said, that counts. So we need to think about that and think about how we're going to deal with that, right? So sometimes if we just pause and we sort of look around and say, what do I have here that I don't know what I'm going to do with? It might not look like $1. It might not look like philanthropy, but it could actually become that. And so I invite you to reach out and ask. And you're welcome to, if you want to keep funds with Fidelity, you want to work with them, whatever, we're still here to work with you, and that's what we do. I work with a lot of churches that don't have funds with the foundation. I work with them anyway. Your PCUSA, I work with you. And I'm a resource here for you, and we have other resources on staff who have a lot of expertise and can answer questions like that. If you go to ECO, we won't work with you, but other than that, we're here for you. Are there any
You have
questions?
some material goods that you think
Mhm.
you have to sell. You put it, how do you put it? How do you know what you're doing?
Well, we're working with someone now who had some artwork, and they were not exactly sure what it was worth. What you have to do is get an appraisal, but we have some people on staff who can help you figure out who to get an appraisal from. What we recommend is that you get the appraisal, which is required, and then you don't sell the asset, you give it to the foundation, and we sell the asset, because then you don't realize the value as income. If you sell it yourself, you realize the value is income, and then you have to declare that. If you give the asset, and we sell it, then you just get the ability to deduct the amount that it was sold for as a charitable contribution.
So do you have a warehouse full of stuff? You can give it to the PCUSA? Is it for sale?
I would think that that was fabulous. Now, my development officer would curse me if I did that to him. But we have, a number of items that we're working on turning into, typically what people do with those is they seed a donor advised fund, or they seed an endowment fund, a permanent fund, to benefit typically their church or a program at their church. But it doesn't have to be that. With the donor advised fund in particular, you can give to any charity. It does not have to be just your church, though, obviously we encourage that. But if you give to, as I do, I give to the church, the zoo, the food bank, and a variety of other things, I can give to all of those through one fund. And the really nice thing about that is that when I make my gift to the fund, I get one receipt that I have to deal with. I don't have to keep receipts from all the other places, because my one gift is the charitable deduction, and then I get to give to the 20 places I like to give to, but I don't have to manage receipts from all those. Are there any questions that I can answer?
Hasn't there been traditionally, like when people give clothing, use clothing, right? Because somebody's got a drive going where they need good clothes for people looking for a job. So you give some, but there was a limit of $500, or I think there was.
Mm-hmm.
And is that still in effect?
Yeah, it is. It's $500 is the max you can give without filling out another form where you have to list the charity you gave it to, the address of the charity, when you bought it, if you can put unknown, how much you paid for it, you can guess, date you gave it, and fair market value. That fair market value, I use UCLA Thrift Shop, and I start a ledger with them. And I think various other organizations that accept used goods have this also, where you just start a ledger with them. Every time you come in, they add, and at the end of the year, they send you the value. So you've got some backup for how much you're putting on your tax return. So.
And then there's no limit.
No, if it gets to be over 5,000, then you have to have an appraisal. That Maggie was talking about,
Yeah.
which is signed both by the organization that receives it and the person who does the appraisal.
Say roughly on a $300, you have a suit that a man paid $300 for, and it's still in decent shape. Is it 10%?
Well, I use 1.7. That's, I've been using that for years.
14%.
But, there are maybe some clothes that are designer clothes that haven't lost their value by that much. So, but I just rely on the people over at the thrift shop to tell me what's worth.
But that's because that's where you give the
Yeah,
stuff, right?
right.
So that can never go to the church.
Well, we used to have the rummage sale here,
Yeah.
and I don't think anyone ever issued people a value of what it was that they donated.
It's not worth about 10 cents. But people pay a lot for it.
Right.
I have a couple other things over there that you might want to take. The two things I point out first, there's this is an estate planning workbook. If you don't have an estate plan, which you should, but if you don't have one, or if you have not updated it, in the last 5 to 10 years, which is really how often you should look at your estate plan. And I will tell you, I'm guilty of this myself. I haven't done it in 15 years, so I'm a lawyer. Then take this. It's a really handy, it's got nice blanks in here where you can fill everything out. And it can remind you, like, what do I need to update? What do I need to change? What is still relevant? What isn't? So it's just like a really nice, exactly what it's called, a workbook that lets you sort of organize all of that. And then it's also really handy to give to whoever is going to be the executor of your estate so that they've got a starting place if something were to happen. So it's a really good tool for that. And then a number of the charitable vehicles we talked about today are sort of detailed in this book, along with a number of other things like charitable remainder trusts and endowment funds, family foundations, things like that. How you can give. It's just sort of a great informational piece if you want to understand a little bit more about them. And then also, and I didn't put them out, but I can give you my card if you have questions and you want to chat. That's what I'm here for. So,
Hi, this is not quite related to tax. Well, kind of. Would either of you be able to talk about the importance of living trusts and putting, as I have gone through the loss of my mother-in-law who did not do that, and now my husband and I are proselytizing about living trusts and property and all that kind of stuff.
yeah. So there's sort of a nice to have, a must have, and a well, whatever kind of attitude with estate planning. My attitude is if you have nothing else, you have to have a will, because a will tells people what you want done with the things that you have, and we all have some things. You also must have a durable power of attorney for healthcare. A durable power of attorney for healthcare is also often called an advance directive. Different people call them different things. But that tells someone what to do if you're not able to take care of yourself with respect to your healthcare decisions. What we often call a living trust is really just a revocable trust, and it makes transfer of assets either on death or on incapacitation a lot easier. So if something were to happen to you and you're not able to make decisions for yourself anymore, someone can step in and can really seamlessly start taking care of all of the things that need to be taken care of, paying your bills, helping with healthcare decisions, because often a healthcare advance directive will be attached to that, so that you don't have to do things like go to court and get a court order so you can get access to a bank account so you can pay someone's medical bills, right? That's why you want to have those things. And then there's a lot of other pieces you can layer on top of that that are nice to have in an estate plan. But if you have nothing else, you want to make sure that you have a will, power of attorney for healthcare, and ideally you would have some sort of trust document that makes it easy for people to act for you.
Yeah, the living trust just helps you avoid probate, and it keeps all your information private.
And in California, the backup for probate is very, very long because of the funding of courts. So if you want to be able, even if you have a relatively simple estate, to be able to resolve it quickly, that living trust can get it done quickly as opposed to a very long period of time. You can make it very cheap and very fast,
Right.
as opposed to a will where you have to go through probate.
Yeah, it costs a little bit more to set up a trust to begin with. I mean, so
It would be a
in
lot
terms
cheaper
of
and
cost,
faster in the long run.
I think in terms
California,
of cost, it ends up being about the same because probate costs are set by statute. So
Are they 1% or 3%?
I think it starts at 3.5, and then it graduates.
It depends on
And
the
it goes
dollars.
down as your estate goes up. So depending on the size of your estate, I mean, these are things to talk to an attorney about. But, depending on the size of your estate, you're right. I mean, it does mean you get to avoid probate, and probate can be long. So it's really about like what that simplicity is that you want to look for, and how much time you want to spend setting it up to begin with.
Well, thank you, ladies, for coming. This was very educational and informative. If anyone
so much.
wants any more information, it's all over here. I'm sure Maggie would love to stick around and talk to you, Mary. has a little bit of time, but she's got a huge to play, so thank you all for coming.